Hello there, I'm Gloria Makarenko. Now, food is life, whether it's fancy or filling, your regular routine, or maybe a special treat. You have come to the right place. This is Our Vancouver. Coming up, can wartime rationing teach us how to make our food system more affordable and sustainable? And how food can heal and bring people together. But first, the secrets to making delicious vegan cakes. Okay, let's talk about Plantcakes. Fancy and everyday vegan cakes for everyone. And joining us now is the baker behind this book. Yes, Lyndsay Sung is with us, and she's brought some really tasty, beautiful samples with her as well. Welcome back to Our Vancouver.
Thank you, Gloria. Thanks for having me.
So what inspired this particular book? Where are we at with vegan baking?
So the way people eat these days, everybody's going plant forward, everyone's switching to plant-based or plant-curious about all the different ingredients and foods you can now eat that are plant-based. So plant cakes just seem like a perfect opportunity to show everybody how to do delicious, beautiful cakes that also happen to be vegan.
Okay, happen to be vegan, but that means you got to change out some of the classic or the ingredients that we're used to, the flours, the eggs, the butter, that type of thing. What's the most challenging part of doing that?
So these days, with all the different plant-based ingredients that are currently available, plant-based butter, there's tons of choices. There's all different types of plant milks, whether it's soy, oat, or almond, or coconut milk. So
what's your go-to plant-based butter?
For plant-based butter, you have to use the brick form in order to make the buttercreams.
Okay.
If you use the tub style, it's a little bit too watery.
Okay.
So go for the brick form, unsalted.
Okay.
Well. Yeah.
That's
Add your own salt at the end.
Okay. No particular brands. You're just saying go for the brick.
Becel actually is the one that I tend to use.
Okay.
I've done the most experimenting with that one.
Okay. And what about the grains? What about the
flour? No problem. Anything you want. Yep. So we do flour. We do sugar. You just want to make sure it's vegan. So if you're in doubt, contact the manufacturer.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, going organic is probably your best bet.
All right. So when we talk about plant-based butter, then what's in it?
So it's vegetable oil. So it's like a margarine, I guess. But
Yep.
So there's coconut oil, vegetable oil in this one.
All right. Yeah. Now, something really necessary is some kind of emulsifier and something that's going to hold everything together. We use eggs when we're not vegans.
Yeah.
What do you use?
So the majority of the cakes in plant cakes, I use a scientific reaction of baking soda and vinegar. So that sort of gives it the leavening boost. Okay. I also use aquafaba, which is the liquid left over from a can of chickpeas. Oh. And you whisk that up, and it has very similar properties to an egg white.
Oh, I see. No, I heard someone talking about using aquafaba to put that little finishing touch on a whiskey sour, or what where we use egg whites or something instead of that to finish off a cocktail.
These cakes here from Plant Cakes, they are used with vegan Swiss meringue buttercream.
Yeah.
So what you do is you would whip your meringue, but instead of using a traditional egg white, you would use the aquafaba liquid, and it whips up just like a meringue. You add your sugars, you add your plant butter, you add your flavorings, and then you can pipe and decorate just like you would a regular fun party cake.
So do you find yourself going through a whole lot of chickpeas?
Oh yes, the freezer is like just freezer bags full of chickpeas.
So what do you do with the actual chickpeas after that? If you take away the liquid and the
we do like a chickpea curry, or you make hummus, or you give it away. You're like, hey neighbor, you don't want some chickpeas?
Who needs some chickpeas? I really want to get down to the decorating here.
Okay.
Like, what have we got? What are you working with?
I brought some offset spatulas and some colored buttercream. So these cakes have like a buttercream painting effect. So I'll give you that.
Feels like we're in a playroom or something with these bright colors, don't you think?
So what you do is you just take a little bit of like that much of the buttercream.
Okay.
And then we're just gonna, I'll do it on the top maybe, or on the side for you.
Okay.
And you just do a little swoop.
Can I do one here?
Of course.
Oh.
There you go. Oops, swoop away.
Oh, this is too fun. This is like coloring.
And then on the top, you can just swoop. And you want to make sure the cake is cold before you do the buttercream.
Oh, because then it's going to make a smushy mess.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, I love this. It's like painting.
And then you want to just make sure you're not totally mixing up all the colors, because you can create a brown shade, but which could be
okay. We didn't do any blue. We didn't do some blue swooshes.
Oh, okay. Here's another.
Okay.
And then I also brought these piping bags with buttercream in them. So this is just an easy, fun, fast way to add some texture and detail to your cake.
Right.
And so what you do is you just squeeze the piping bag down and you pull it up. So
Right.
that's like called a drop star. And
Right.
then if you want to do a quick border, so you just squeeze and pull, and then you just do the next one right on top of that one.
What kind of demand are you seeing for this, just as people's tastes change?
Honestly, the excitement around Plantcakes, it's been really cool to see. The book came out yesterday, so just seeing everybody excited about trying all the recipes, like baker friends that I know have been trying the buttercreams and with great success. And it's just nice to be able to serve a cake that is delicious. And again, like, you know, you go to a party these days, there's so many different eating styles. You've got
Yes,
vegans,
yes.
vegetarians, maybe somebody who's allergic to dairy.
Right.
And you cut up the birthday cake and everyone's like enjoying their piece. No one's getting the weird like tofu cupcake on the side
Do
or
you
something.
notice? I'm going to have to get you to cut into this.
yes,
but
let's do it.
Would someone notice that this is a vegan cake?
I mean, I've been fooling my family
Here, I got a
for
plate.
years. They've been my guinea pigs. Yeah, my whole family, my parents, my nieces and nephews, obviously my husband and
Tell
son.
them it's vegan.
So I'll
Is
bring the
that it?
cake, it'll look like one of these, and
Yeah.
then 5 minutes later, after they've all eaten their cake and they're all like, oh, that was so good, Lyndsay, then I'll be like, that was vegan.
Well, you know what?
love
Now
doing, yeah.
that you put out this cookbook, they're going to be suspicious right from the start. You know that's going to happen.
Yeah, they are very, very supportive, and they're pretty excited, and honestly, they can't believe it. So here is...
Look, the first piece is always the hardest, and look at
Oh,
you.
look at that.
That is gorgeous. That
this
is
one
just
is-
gorgeous. So what kind of cake is this?
It's a vanilla cake, and it's got a Swiss meringue buttercream, and it's got some of these berries chopped up in, and there's a jam as well.
Yeah, look at that. Yeah, I love that. Look at the layering there. Okay, we're going to do this.
Yeah, so
Vegan.
yeah, try it out. And
Tell them it's vegan. Oh, that is gorgeous. It is really gorgeous. It's
Yeah.
beautiful. It brightens up our studio and it brightens up our day. It really does. All the best to you and congratulations on the new cookbook.
Thank you so much, Gloria. Yeah.
This is our Vancouver.
So many of you take amazing photographs in our beautiful province, and we always feature a few of the ones we receive each week. And today, we are featuring animals being fed. And we don't usually do this, but these are all sent in by Norm Stack. First, this osprey flew in some fresh fish for his family along the Fraser River in Richmond. Nice catch. And it looks like this squirrel is enjoying a berry in Port Coquitlam. And finally, this black bear caught a fish for her family near Burke Mountain in Coquitlam. Wow. Thanks again for all those photographs, Norm. Just love it. And do send us more. It's easy. Just email your favorite shots to us at bcphotos@cbc.ca. That's bcphotos@cbc.ca. Now, if you want some food, but you don't want to go very far, a corner store may be a convenient option. Now, a corner store can also play an important role in communities. The City of Vancouver wants public input on how they can support and potentially expand the neighborhood businesses. Here's Rafferty Baker with that story.
They're independent shops, sometimes including a cafe, corner stores. The very idea stirs up a bit of nostalgia.
They need to be here. You have to have them. When we were kids, there was corner stores just about everywhere.
We're lucky here in Strathcona. We have a handful of them, but most neighborhoods don't have any.
But they used to be everywhere.
People become regulars and shopkeepers become central figures in the neighborhood.
We have like sandwiches or sort of stuff too. So that's why, I believe it's pretty important place here for, people who live around here, maybe.
At Wayne Grocery in the Strathcona neighborhood, Sam Sue says 99% of the people that come in are wonderful.
It's good people. Yeah.
I buy stuff that I don't want to have to go down to the big store, travel all the way down to No Frills.
I try to stay away from the big stores because I value these stores. This is a typical corner store family that has worked here probably for 20 years, and we support them.
But they're slowly disappearing from neighborhoods. In Vancouver, officials say there are now 88, but only 40 of those are neighborhood grocery stores. The city is looking for feedback on whether to allow more small neighborhood businesses.
Taxes should be lowered so they can lower their prices.
I would say do whatever you can to make it easier. We had friends running a corner store, and then all of a sudden there was a bunch of zoning trouble that came up, and I think it seemed like the city was trying to put up barriers that were not needed. And the whole community wanted the corner store there.
They're the backbone of the city. This is what built this city, these corner stores. And I don't understand the zoning department, why they're allowing these corner stores just to fade away.
and a survey is open until October 10th. Rafferty Baker, CBC News, Vancouver.
Coming up, Johanna Wagstaff makes the case for eating insects.
Beef, pork, chicken, dairy. We know the earth takes huge hits to produce all the animal products we eat. But might I bug you about a different animal product that emits considerably less greenhouse gases? Hear me out, creepy crawlies. 6 legs, preferably, not 8. This is a relatively new concept for many of us, but insects have been part of cultural diets in regions like Vietnam, Thailand, for millennia. Could edible insects like crickets and mealworms hit our grocery shelves and become more of a fixture in our diets? Well, experts say there's a number of advantages to eating bugs, both for our nutrition and the environment. Depending on what insect you're eating, they can be rich in protein and good fats, protein with high vitamin, fiber, and mineral content. Farming insects requires less to produce than livestock, not to mention how they need less water and land. And because insects are ectothermic, aka cold-blooded, they are efficient in converting feed into protein and can even be fed organic waste. A few cricket farms have popped up in Canada over the last 10 years. And some farmers markets even carry a few cricket snacks or two. Just recently, a massive cricket processing facility came online in London, Ontario, with the hopes to produce 13 million kilograms of cricket protein annually, mainly for pet food markets for now. So what's stopping us from eating more bugs? Well, sure, there's the psychological barrier for some, but more research does need to be done when it comes to the potential biological hazards of eating different kinds of bugs. I'm talking microbugs in the bugs. But either way, it's getting quite a bit of buzz.
Thanks so much, Johanna. You're watching Our Vancouver. I'm Gloria Makarenko. So, from climate change to war to supply chains, being able to get good food at affordable prices is no longer a sure thing for us. Well, our next guest has found an interesting inspiration for a solution. Eleanor Boyle is the author of Mobilize Food, Wartime Inspiration for Environmental Victory today. Eleanor, so nice to have you with us. Thank you for coming
Gloria.
in.
Lovely to be here.
How did you even get interested in this, what they were eating in wartime?
Yeah, war was not my first interest in research. I had been researching food systems, by which we mean agriculture and diets, to ask how can they be healthier, how can they be more sustainable? And my husband and I were in London, England on a holiday when we saw that a museum had an exhibit called the Ministry of Food, and it turns out that was the government department in World War II Britain that was set up to assertively and systematically try to make sure everyone had enough to eat during the war, because war tends to wreck food systems. And I was very inspired. I thought, I'll bet there are some lessons here for us today.
Right. Well, before we get to the lessons, we've got some posters that are circulating in behind us here. What was the messaging of the time?
Well, shifts had to be made at every single level, from lowering imports, because those ships would be torpedoed in the English Channel, to getting farmers to produce more, to getting householders to dig up their backyard, grow whatever they could, eat more potatoes and less bread, because bread was based on wheat that was coming into the country. Potatoes could be grown in your backyard. So really the messaging was to rally everyone to recognize the crisis and to recognize that by shifting the way they ate and handled food, they could help the war effort.
Right. Rationing means fair. Okay. Share for all of us as well. The carrot is a child's best friend, that kind of, because you could grow potatoes and grow carrots. Now, what about this one? This is an interesting poster from wartime.
Well, this is a favorite, so I brought this along. For a healthy, happy job, join the Women's Land Army. And some viewers may have indeed heard of the Women's Land Army. So part of the rallying of all citizens was to get women to come out from their jobs in the city and help bring in the harvest on farms to again increase agricultural productivity so that the country could eat as much local as possible, local healthy food. And many, many thousands of women came out. Some people had never seen a cow before, but came out to work on farms and join the movement. And it touches me because I think we have a bit of that today in the whole movement, especially of young people who are working allotment gardens, who are working on local farms, who are animating farmers markets, who are trying to localize our food system. And it really is one of the things that we need to do to improve our food system.
Well, and you said it yourself, there are lessons from what they experienced during wartime, lessons for us today. What kinds of lessons?
Well, Britain in World War II really just wanted to make sure everyone got fed because you can't win a war if you're hungry. And they wanted to win the war, which early in World War II, it was not at all clear that Britain and the Allies were going to win. That's one of the reasons that they made sure that everyone is rallied to the food movement. So their aim was to win a war, but what they ended up doing was having everyone eat more local, more plant-based, and with much, much less waste, which kind of shocked me when I discovered it, because that's part of the definition that we use today for sustainable diets. And that's why I feel that even though their aims were not environmental, it's very relevant to today.
Well, you make a really good point. There is a movement to grow more food in your own backyard. A lot of people went that way, especially through the pandemic, you know, digging up their plots and growing their own food, being less reliant on the system. But we like our avocados, we like our pineapples, we like our bananas and that type of thing. How do you change that kind of mentality?
Yeah. Wonderful point. And we also love our meat. And one of the things they did is they ate less meat, and that's part of the food movement today, is to try to get people to moderate their meat intake. It's all about not making a 100% shift. We don't have to completely stop eating pineapples. We don't have to completely stop eating meat by any means. We need to moderate our intake of foods that are imported and foods that take a lot of resources to produce.
Well, thank you so much for this little window into the world of wartime and lessons for us today, Eleanor. Appreciate you coming in.
Thank you, Gloria.
Hey, I'm Grant Lawrence from CBC Music, and I'm delighted to let you know that one of my favorite musicians from the North, way north, is returning this month with a brand new album. Terry Uyaruk is from the tiny island of Igloolik, north of the Arctic Circle in the Northwest Passage. And Terry made history a few years ago when his song Inuit Nunangat became the first ever Inuktitut song to chart on the CBC Music Top 20. A beautiful tune there from Terry Uyaruk from his debut album that came out in 2020, which not only charted on the CBC Music Top 20, but also landed Terry a Juno Award nomination. Now, one of the greatest aspects of Terry's music and his videos is that they provide us Southerners with a window into life in the North. You don't need to understand the language, it's the melodies and the feelings within the songs that let you in. From his brand new record that will be released on the first day of summer when the sun will be high over his Arctic home, here is Terry Uyaruk with a beautiful new song called Nutarlunga, which translates to When I Was a Kid. There you you go. That's Terry Uyaruk with his recently released song, Nu Taurlunga, or When I Was a Kid, inspired by memories of months-long traditional hunting trips in the summer with his family. Epic expeditions traveling over 60 kilometers north of Igloolik looking for seals, Arctic char, caribou, and walrus. Besides Terry's music, his Instagram account is also an amazing glimpse into daily life north of the Arctic Circle. The caption for that video was simply "Out Here Living." Now, as I mentioned, Terry's new album is out June 21st. It's called Unwalk, which Terry describes as healing songs. They connect the husband, father, and artist that he is now to the young boy he was when he heard forbidden folk songs of his people for the first time. Now, those songs were prohibited by the church, according to Terry, but they finally began to reemerge in his community when he was a kid. At a young age, it was clear to Terry that those ancient songs possessed a kind of healing power, so much so that in the course of creating his original music, Terry Uyaruk is aware of its legacy and the memories that his songs will evoke. That's Terry Uyaruk with Kaigi, the first song on his new album that will be out in a couple of weeks. And that is the tune that you need to add to your playlist for this week from Terry Uyaruk of Igloolik, Nunavut. I'm Grant Lawrence from CBC Music. I'll check in with you again soon.
Coming up, how food does more than feed you, it also brings people together. Hi there, welcome back to Our Vancouver. I'm Gloria Makarenko. Now, food means many things for SFU Assistant Professor Tamara Soma. When she was younger, she had an eating disorder, and now she talks a lot about food waste. She's also featured in a documentary courtesy of the CBC Creator Network. It's called Food is My Teacher. Just check out this extended trailer.
Food is healing in so many ways. It heals one's body, it heals one's spirit, it also strengthens one's cultural identity, but most importantly, it brings people together. I'm a professor at Simon Fraser University with the School of Resource and Environmental Management, and I'm also the research director at the Food Systems Lab on Burnaby Mountain, British Columbia. I'm on a journey to identify the healing power of food. And the reason why this journey matters so much to me is because I'm a professor, I'm an educator, and I teach about food systems for my students. And so when I think about the healing power of food, I think about how our food systems have a lot of potential, but this potential is not really met at the moment. We have a food crisis. We think about all of, on one side, all of the people that are hungry and food insecure, and at the same time, in this current industrial food system, we have a lot of food waste. We also have a food system that extracts a lot of natural resources and is bad for biodiversity, is bad for the water, is bad for the natural environment. And so when I think about the potential of finding the true power of food and how it can heal not just body, but also spirit and also the planet, I think that is a journey that is definitely worthwhile to go on. Going to the Harmony Garden is so important to me because I have heard the most amazing stories about how this garden helped transform people's life.
Our elders and myself and younger people, we wanted to see a place that we could just go and not be told we can't have the food. And that's in our history, residential schools, they forced children to garden, but they never fed them the food. That food was always for the priests, the nuns, and often the RCMP who would come and go. So food had a bad relationship, growing food had a bad relationship for quite a few decades, and we're reversing that and turning it into something more positive, where there's accessible free food, there's traditional indigenous foods that they might only find in the mountains or in wild spaces. There's language that connects them to who they are and why that food is important to them. And there's just that safety net. Does it taste like nature candy?
Yeah.
It's kind of cool, hey?
I was bullied a lot for my weight. Bullying by classmates, bullying by teachers, being told to weigh yourself in front of the classroom and kind of being looked at because you had the highest BMI in the classroom. I mean, all of these things had an impact on me. And everything that I was seeing in magazines and on TV showed a particular ideal of beauty, and I did not fit into any sort of the ideal beauty standards that society, was promoting. And so I had an eating disorder. Food was basically something to be feared. And I think that it was a time of such mental anguish and hardship for me. And I managed to come out of it through a lot of healing. And that healing was not something that's just physical, but I actually had to heal my worldview. I had to become friends again with food. And Islam helped me become connected again to food, because when I started choosing to wear the hijab, I realized that it's not just about the shell. It's really about me. It's really about my heart and what I can offer the world. As a professor at Simon Fraser University, I conduct a lot of research on food systems. And one of the most inspiring experiences is when I learn about the Sikh culture of providing free food with no stigma through their community kitchen langar program. And so working with Sikh community members, actually I learned about the beautiful teachings where you share food, there is no stigma, you eat together regardless of your race and your religion. And it's like food becomes this great avenue to bring people together and highlight equality, the importance of food and equity. Thank you. I love the work of the Hua Foundation. I can completely relate to many of their initiatives, many of their concerns. A lot of youth are disconnected from their culture, but the Hua Foundation creates a home for many of these youth to basically reconnect through food and basically strengthen their identity. Giant pierogies?
Yeah, we made some big pierogies. I guess we just have a lot of love.
One more in here. I've known Dr. Lauren Kepkwich since 2012 when we were both starting our PhD at the University of Toronto. When I think about food as medicine, I think of her work with the Bow Valley Food Alliance and how it's bringing people together and solving a lot of food-related issues in Alberta.
The Bow Valley Food Alliance has been really lucky to work with many amazing groups here in the Bow Valley. And one of those groups is the Filipino organization in the Rocky Mountains. The Filipino organization in the Rocky Mountains works a lot with temporary foreign workers, and they also do this in multiple ways. And one of the ways is by providing culturally appropriate food hampers and delivering them to the homes of folks in our community.
Have a great day. Okay,
Thank you.
bye-bye.
I think what's important about this journey is that although there are stereotypes about the Muslim community, the Filipino community, the Punjabi Sikh community, the indigenous communities, what all of these different leaders have shown is that there's a new way of seeing people through food by showing how all of these different leaders have a lot to offer in terms of expertise, in terms of teachings that show that we can all coexist peacefully and bring people together through food.
Hi, I'm Sarah on Robson Street, and this is our Vancouver.
You know, some farmers are struggling to make ends meet this year because of drought conditions and strict water restrictions. Yasmin Gandam looked at why and whether there's any sort of end in sight.
I haven't seen it like this. This is the driest he's ever seen in 80 years of farming.
Matthew Lady runs Brookfield Dairy Farm in Maple Ridge. The farm has been in his family since 1879, but if the province does not see enough rain, he is worried he won't be able to keep it up.
We're learning to adapt as we go, but there's only so far we can push things. And right now I feel we're kind of pushed to the limit. You can see the grass is a bit ground and dry. They're happy to be out here eating.
Lady says farmers are all competing for the limited stock of hay right now, resorting to buying from across the border. Governments are calling the conditions catastrophic, unlike anything that's been seen before. The federal minister of emergency preparedness says work is being done to make sure policies are in place to support those hit hard by the ongoing drought.
Looking at the mitigation and the adaptation work. So that's an area that we will work together on this. The wider drought issue, I think, is going to have to take a look at a much wider issue when it comes to what type of new systems are going to be needed in place, what type of disaster that might also fall, and what type of consultations will be needed.
But this climate change expert says conditions aren't changing anytime soon.
The drought conditions this fall is more likely to actually continue all the way to mid-spring. And the reason being, there will be precipitation, but most of it falls mid to high elevation in the form of snow.
The province has seen sustained higher than average temperatures and low rainfall this year, leading to the worst wildfire season on record. While too much rain too quickly could cause the catastrophic flooding seen in winter of 2021, too little could extend the drought into the new year.
That wildfire has a double whammy, an effect on droughts because it exacerbates the droughts, because the landscape is actually now water repellent. The flood level that we used to experience once every 100 years, we're now experiencing them more frequently.
One step we would look to in the future was adding irrigation equipment.
For now, the only thing farmers like Lady can do is hope for some rain and relief. Yasmin Gandam, CBC News, Maple Ridge.
Coming up, how the Chiem First Nation in Chilliwack responded to heat and drought by moving salmon at risk to cooler waters. Welcome back to Our Vancouver. I'm Gloria Makarenko. Now, when heat and drought threatened salmon in Chilliwack, the Chiem First Nation stepped in to move them to cooler water. But as our Camille Vernet reports, warm temperatures aren't the only things impacting the habitats.
This creek, running between a highway and a golf course, is an important habitat for young coho salmon, but it's drying up. It's not even 9 a.m. and the sun is already blazing, scorching the water and threatening the fish.
It's 18.9 degrees.
This biologist says that by afternoon, the water will be too hot for salmon to survive.
Yeah, it's pretty clear this one's not going to make it. My expectation is in the next couple of hours, the bird's going to take it.
Fort Creek runs through Chiem First Nation. It's here that members of the nation saw fish being trapped in water as early as July. They took matters into their own hands.
People volunteered and came and helped transport the salmonoid to other locations.
Mike Pearson was part of the team that saved 2,800 juvenile fish.
So the fact that almost a third of the fish that we caught were in about 3% of the habitat, crammed up against the barrier at the upstream end, tells me they were desperately trying to get out of here.
Heat and drought isn't the only factor threatening fish. The stream didn't always look like this.
You can see a flat, dry channel, completely unprotected from the sun, eroding banks. Previous to the work being done, this was a very well-shaded stream. The stream bed was about here. It was almost a meter higher.
Last August, the city of Chilliwack carried out some work on the stream, clearing vegetation along the banks.
It's devastating to see what has changed here, and knowing that the salmon are not surviving when they return back here.
The city explained they had to do this after the intense flooding in November 2021. They say they had to remove the sediment to restore fish access.
It is certainly not what you would call restoration. I mean, the only benefit that I can see in going that deep is to prevent flooding on the golf course.
Chief Victor says First Nations were not consulted in the work.
There needs to be proper consultation and consent with First Nations peoples. And we need to have a focus not just on how the water flows through, but what is the impact to the habitat? What is the impact to the salmon?
Even this crayfish has fled the water, trying to find a cool spot in the shade.
The stream was probably too hot for it. We're going to carefully take it back up to where we release the salmon, where it's cooler water, and hopefully have a better chance of survival.
The cohos were moved here upstream in this shaded area where the water is much cooler.
12.7 degrees. So we've got great water quality and good habitat. They'll be happy here.
The Chiam Nation wants the creek to be restored. Otherwise, year after year, they will have to salvage fish again and again to ensure their survival. Camille Vernet, CBC News, Chilliwack.
We know that squirrels are infamous when it comes to gathering and storing food. But when we see them scurrying around everywhere, what are they actually doing? Well, Bill Dowd, the head of Skedaddle Humane Wildlife Control, told me on our afternoon radio show on the coast.
This has got everybody talking in the newsroom, especially dog owners. Why are squirrels so busy right now?
Well, this is the time of year when the second litter of the year have been born. So the population is at its highest right now. We're still enjoying some beautiful days out there. So people are outside enjoying the outdoors, and the squirrel population is at its highest of any time throughout the calendar year.
Well, what exactly are they doing, though?
Well, this time of year, they're looking for attic spaces or chimneys or wall cavities to live, to survive the cooler winter temperatures. But that's how they're flourishing in all urban centers across Canada, not just Vancouver. We see just as many squirrels in Halifax, Ottawa, Montreal. Every single city in Canada and the U.S. is inundated with squirrels.
Well, I put out the call to some of our listeners if they had questions about squirrel behavior that they're observing. Here's a question. Why are they chasing each other around and around, up and down trees? They don't seem to be fighting. I don't see any signs of mating, although maybe they're just more private about that.
They're a little more private than that, but when you see squirrels running around, chasing each other, running around and around a tree trunk, those are squirrels mating, or the male is getting ready to mate with the female. She may not be ready just yet. So that's that behavior, which means in 45 days would be newborn baby squirrels.
Okay, now you talked about looking for attic space or placing walls. Don't they make little holes in trees or roots or that type of thing?
The safety and security of an attic is more enticing to them, but they will nest in trees, and typically we'll see that in the fall season when the leaves fall. You might see a big ball, maybe the size of two basketballs in a tree, and that's a squirrel nest.
Okay, and what exactly are they foraging for right now?
Well, they're eating nuts, and they'll even eat pizza. There's a famous photo of a squirrel in New York City running around with a pizza in its mouth. So, nuts and twigs and, seeds and, all that type of thing is they'll eat. But they're getting more and more like the perfect urban animal, the raccoon, eating everything and anything.
Oh, I see. So that's just a result of living in an urban atmosphere. All right. So once they gather these, whether they're seeds or nuts or what do they do with them?
Well, typically they're just eating them, but There is one squirrel that is very determined. It's the American red squirrel, which we have here in Vancouver, and they'll bring food sources such as pine cones and whatnot into the attic space, and we'll sometimes take out 4 or 5 green garbage bags full of pine cones that the squirrels are bringing in there, and they're rodents, so it means their teeth are constantly growing, so they need to chew to keep them at proper length. Chewing electrical wiring, you get old dried pine cones in there. That's a recipe for disaster with a fire.
4 or 5 giant garbage bags full of pine cones you've taken out?
That and the mold and mildew and odor. So when they're in your attic, you definitely want them out. Well, any animal, but they're more dangerous because of that versus the typical gray and black ones we see in our cities, which don't bring food sources into an attic space.
I see. Oh, here's another question from a listener. Vivian writes in, do they remember where they've hidden their food or their nuts? And if so, how?
There are on occasions where they kind of forget where they are, and they'll just look for other food sources out there. And that's why their populations keep growing in numbers every single year, because we provide them with the food sources and we provide them with the habitat.
Now, if we leave food in the trash where the rats can reach it, chances are they will. Now, sometimes the weather can contribute to a rise in rat populations. In 2001, that is what several Canadian cities saw. Here's Lynn Robson with that story from our CBC archives.
Vancouver, a good place to escape the rat race, right? Wrong. Rats, thousands and thousands of them have invaded the waterfront and the back alleys. So many rats, health officials are worried.
They also destroy food, property. They can actually chew into house wiring and cause house fires. So they are a health and a safety concern.
Rats are on the rise in Montreal, too. In fact, this house of prayer has been dubbed the House of Rats. 3 rat sightings in 2 weeks, says this woman.
Later, I was looking at my friend and I realized there's a second rat sitting right behind her. I think that one was dead because it didn't move. About 2 days later, I came back to work again and I saw another one.
Exterminator Harold Levy knows rats, knows the cracks and crevices that lead straight to broken sewage pipes. He says the city is partly to blame for happy rats. The sewage system is old and crumbling. Rats like that, he says. Plus, garbage on the streets, deserted buildings, it all adds up to rat heaven. But that doesn't explain this year's rat explosion. Good weather does. Montreal's had one of the hottest, driest summers on record. People liked it. Turns out the rats did too. Warm summers, mild winters, perfect weather for big rat families, he says. In Toronto, same weather, same result.
Our rodent jobs have almost doubled this year over the course of what we were doing last year.
City officials say there's no rat problem. Rats to that, says this man.
Go back into Sketches Park, they're crawling all over the place inside the gardens and stuff.
Claire Barassa says the solution will come. It will rain and fill the sewers.
Sometimes when you have big rain, they can drown.
Oh, nice. What a shame for us, though.
No sympathy and no leftovers to feed all those hungry rats. Seems like a rat just can't get a break anymore. Lynn Robson, CBC News, Montreal.
At the end of this program, we like to tip our hats to our talented photojournalists on staff here at CBC Vancouver. Let's continue with today's theme with a sample of photographs of food, including ice cream cones, fresh zucchini, and vending machine sushi. Well, that's all for our Vancouver for this week. I hope you can join me weekday afternoons on CBC Radio 1 for On the Coast. For now, bye-bye.